Hello, I'm James Graham. I'm a playwright and screenwriter, and I'm here at Sheffield Libraries to do a talk as part of the multi-story series of events about my writing so far, what I'm up to at the moment, and I guess as a political playwright to talk about how writers might respond to the slightly crazy current events that seem to be happening all around us these days.
I think your first feature film was filmed in Sheffield. How did that come about?
Yeah, so my first feature film is called X plus Y, and I think that was filmed in Sheffield around 2013. And I think it was a lucky accident. I grew up not too far away in Mansfield, and I just remember at the time when I wrote the script, I didn't specify a city, but I think we got the support of Screen Yorkshire as part of one of the funders of the movie. And when the director was doing location scouting this city, as often does with people, it really seemed to attract him as to the story. And it felt like the family I'd written would come from a community like this, so I was thrilled. It meant I got to be around more than I thought because I was visiting my family. And yeah, I was very, very pleased with the end results.
And we're at the Carpenter Room this evening. Can you tell us a bit more about your talk?
Yeah, I mean, I think these talks, I prefer these kind of talks where it's not just me talking. I think the events are better when it's more of a Q&A. So I'll be saying a few things about the projects I'm currently working on, which is a mixture of television and theatre and movies. But then I'd just rather open it up to the people who are coming. And I want to hear people's questions and make it more of a conversation. I think these events work best when they do that.
Can you give us a taster of your career so far? Are there sort of a couple of things that stand out particularly for you?
I've been very lucky because there have been lots of various different things. So I consider myself mainly a playwright in theatre, and in the past few years I've done a mixture of things, including a play called This House, which opened at the National Theatre, and I think was probably, as part of the National Theatre Live scheme, was probably broadcast into cinemas in Sheffield a few years ago. I've just finished a musical on Broadway with Gary Barlow. He wrote the music and I wrote the book, the script. So that was a very different thing. During the last general election, I did a play called The Vote, which was broadcast live on the election night on More 4. And that starred people like Judi Dench and Mark Gatiss and loads of people. So I was very lucky with that, and that was a career highlight, I think. But no, I mean, filming X plus Y, that was my first movie. That was great fun. I'm working on a couple of movies at the moment. I'm adapting 1984 for an American studio. So that's very pertinent to what's happening in the world at the moment, but also proving quite a challenge to get right. So I'm working on that. And yeah, but it's, plays are my passion. I didn't grow up with theatre in my life, and getting a popular audience into a theatre that wouldn't normally maybe step into it is something I really care passionately about.
As you mentioned, we're living in very strange times at the moment. How do you see the role of the writer in all that?
I think the role of the writer right now is more important than it's ever been. I think, given that we're told that we're living in very divided, disunited times as a society, and the role of a dramatist, certainly, so beyond writers of books or journalism, I think a dramatist's theatre is one of the few remaining places we have where we get together in a space, much like these events at Sheffield Libraries. It's very rare now, I think, in civic spaces that we get to gather and experience art. Movies are generally watched on laptops these days and privately at home on television. So I think, to come to a physical space and discuss the issues of a day through a story, through a piece of theatre, feels like a possible answer to how you might get out of your echo chamber, out of your bubble, and be forced to comprehend views that are different from your own. So I think it's very important.
And you're working on a version of 1984 at the moment. What stage is that at?
I'm still writing the script. I'm developing it with a director called Paul Greengrass, who's a director known for things like the Bourne movies and Captain Phillips and those sorts of things. So he's a real inspiration. I'm working very closely with him on structuring the story and writing the script. So that'll probably be a couple of years, I think, before you see that in cinemas. But obviously we're very keen to get it out as soon as possible, given that issues of truth and post-truth and tyranny around the world seems more pertinent depressingly than it ever was.
And you've worked with some of the big names, the people at the top of their game, like Judi Dench and Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah.
Do you ever get starstruck?
I still do, but probably not for really famous people, for people I admire. So I don't know, if I meet another playwright like Alan Bennett, who I had a cup of tea with last year, and you think, oh my God, it's Alan Bennett. So I do get, but only because I respect them, and I suppose I want them to think I'm smart enough or good enough to be in their company and take up their time. Working with Daniel Radcliffe was very strange because we did a show out in New York called Privacy, and it was about, we got the audience to invade their own privacy by keeping their mobile phones on during the show, and we looked at bits of their data, and that fed into the show, which sounds quite strange, but it was sort of fun, and it kind of worked. And so weirdly, Daniel played like a version of me because I wrote myself into the play, which sounds like egotistical, but actually it was because I wanted to explore my own privacy as well. If I was asking the audience to do it, I thought I should do it myself. So he played a version of me, and my family were obviously very thrilled to come and watch a play where Daniel Radcliffe is playing their son. But he was a good sport. He's a wonderful actor and a really, really great man.
And Mark Gatiss is a brilliant television writer, isn't he?
He is, yeah. So exactly, as well as being a brilliant comedian and actor, he's responsible for some of the most popular television currently on our screens, from Sherlock to Doctor Who and beyond. So yeah, he's a friend now, and I would be very happy always to send him scripts and read his scripts. I think it's important that writers share work sometimes because it can be quite isolating, atomising job. And actually I worked with Mark I did a TV drama called Coalition about 3 years ago for Channel 4, which was about the Lib Dem Conservative negotiations to make a government in 2010, and Mark Gatiss played Peter Mandelson, and his mischievous side as an actor suited that part very well. He was very impressive.
And I was going to ask finally, you've done some absolutely fantastic work so far. What would be your dream project in the future?
Well, I've never done a book, and I think I'd like to do that. When I first started writing as a kid at like 4 or 5, it was because I'd never seen any theatre. It was prose, it was short stories. But then the seduction and the magic of theatre and the collaborative nature of theatre, where you get to work with these different actors and directors in a space, and work with the audience as well. That's the exciting thing about theatre. When you're previewing your show and you're learning about it and learning what works and what needs work, you're updating it all the time. So I could never give up theatre. I think it improves me and pushes me as a writer. But I am seduced by the idea of 500 words a day on the French Riviera and just doing one, being completely invested in a world, and having that very private, personal, intimate relationship with the reader feels like something I'd like to do. But it's very intimidating. That's a lot of words to write, way more